Qatari media have valued the projects to be worth more than $250 million that the Qataris are providing in Gaza. The aid was pledged at a summit in the Qatari capital in 2009. Much of the funding will go to the education and infrastructure sectors. It includes a hospital and a housing project called Hamad City in the south. Well, that's worth an estimated $62 million. Much of the Gaza Strip's infrastructure was damaged or destroyed during Israel's incursion into the area during 2008 and 2009. Well, let's talk more about this with Michael Stevens from the Royal United Services Institute in Qatar. Good to have you with us.
Hi.
First of all, how much of a breakthrough does this represent in terms of Gaza's international isolation that we have a head of state visiting?
I think it's a big step forward, actually, and I think that it's come from the right country in terms of the fact that they're not seen as too aggressive on one side or the other with regards to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But I think it's key to remember that there were a number of European states who had also been talking to Hamas openly over the past few years. None had sent an official delegation, but the groundwork was being laid by a number of different actors.
So is this the beginning of a trend? Could we expect perhaps more high-ranking politicians, if not heads of states, to be heading out there?
Well, I think the Qataris have better relations with Hamas than most other nations. So it's difficult to say at this point because Sheikh Hamad has good relations with both Ismail Haniyeh and also Khalid Mash'al. So in that respect, they've been building that relationship for a number of years, actually. But this, I think, will be the first step towards allowing other countries to come through, yes.
What's really interesting, though, is that there is a message here in that he's not meeting with Mahmoud Abbas, he's not visiting the PA or even the West Bank.
Yeah, and I can't see any way in which Fatah would not take this as a slight, actually. That's not to say that there haven't been issues.
So what is the message that's being given here?
Well, I mean, it's got to be seen within context. I mean, they tried, the Qataris, to mediate between Fatah and Hamas, and those negotiations were unsuccessful. I think this is a de facto recognition at the moment that Hamas is in control of the Gaza Strip and that they are the ones responsible for security, infrastructure rebuilding and the economy of the Strip. And so that's a sort of de facto recognition of the power of Hamas in that area, which of course is bad for Fatah, but it's a reality.
Let's look into Hamas now. Do you detect anything of a policy shift going on within Hamas, leaning at least a little more away from other or towards other countries rather than relying entirely on Syria and Iran?
Well, I think yes, but Hamas has always been pragmatic in this respect, in that they've looked for money and funding from wherever it could come. So they were taking money, for example, a few years ago from Saudi Arabia and from the Iranians. Now, Iran has kind of stepped away from that arena because of issues to do with Bashar al-Assad, Hamas withdrawing its support for Bashar al-Assad, and I think the Qataris have filled the gap here. They've obviously spotted a diplomatic space into which they can move, and I think that this is more of a shift towards, I would say, a Sunni orientation. It's not necessarily sectarian in nature, but it's going towards what the trend of the region is going towards.
Speaking about the trend of the region, is there something of a change going on within Sunni Arab politics when you look at things like this? Qatar, of course, has had a relationship with Hamas for a while. We've got a new Egyptian government which relates or hails or dominated by a group that is related to Hamas. Are the positions of Egypt and Qatar now maybe a little bit closer when it comes to the Palestinians as opposed to what we had during the war in 2008 and 2009?
Yes, I'd say they are. I think that it was very clear when Hosni Mubarak was still in power that there was a different set of issues that were concerning Egypt then. I think that Qatar is definitely more aligned with Mohammed Morsi and the sort of Ikhwan, Muslim Brotherhood type ideology. And so, yes, there's a strengthening between Qatar's ideology, I think, between Gaza and between the Egyptians. There's also movements of Ikhwan across the region now, and I think that there is a sort of regional shift happening.
It's fascinating. There's plenty more to talk about, but we'll save that for another day. Thanks so much.
Thank you.